Okay, it's Wyken.
Move later.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, there it is. Monday's quiz on a T.
Let's see. On a T.
Raise your hand or I'll call on you. First question. Whose plan was known as the 10% plan? Remember, when you raise your hand, give me the choice. You have to explain what it was. Why is it on the test? We're not playing school. I hope what I'm trying to get you to here, can I reveal something to you? You might think this is crazy coming from a teacher. Maybe you've already picked up on about me because it's, I don't really care about grades that much. Like, no, I do. I care about grades in the sense that I want you all to do well. And your parents care about your grades and you should care about them because they do lead to opportunities for more success. But I'd rather you, instead of just telling me what the answer is, be able to what I want you to do is just want to learn stuff. Like, I wouldn't care if there were no grades and we just all got together every day and learn stuff. But there has to be a grade, right? There has to be an accounting. There has to be an accounting for what you've learned. But the goal isn't the grade. The goal is the learning. I know that's so nerdish. And it's like, but that's my honest evaluation of this class. Which is maybe why it takes me so long to do it, because it's like a secondary. So a lot of people think teachers, all the grades look. No, it's like a secondary. I'd rather Bella grow up and go out in society with real, not just knowledge, but interest. Not just getting an A on the test. So you had your hand up, Jake. What's the answer? Okay, what was the 10% plan? Nope.
No, you raised your hand.
10% of what? 10% of what?
Isn't it something about the South or something like that?
Yeah. Okay, let me give you another multiple choice. Did he just want 10% of the southern states to agree? Because that would mean only one state would have to agree.
He wanted 10% of people to pledge their allegiance.
There you go. So Lincoln says in each state, 10% of the voters, not just people, the voters, have to swear an allegiance to the United States. That should make sense. You have left the United States. If you want to be incorporated back in, now what someone would say, no, we don't want to. We want to continue to fight the war. But the war's over. If you want to be incorporated back into the United States, 10% of your people have to swear an oath of allegiance to the United States. Just like if someone's going to become a citizen, guess what they have to do? Did you know? A legal citizen. They have to take an oath to the Constitution. Of course. You want people that are anti-American. I digress. You don't want people that are anti-American in America, right? So anyway, now I got my mind off track. 10%, do you think that was lenient? That only 10% of the people would have to swear an allegiance? Yeah, most people, what group of people would think that's too lenient? Radical Republicans. They're like, no, you can't let them off that easy. But then think of it from Lincoln's point of view. He's trying to bring unity, right? And by the way, if you get 10% of the electorate to swear allegiance to the United States, and then they come on board with you, they're going to be the ones that are leading the Reconstruction, right? 10%. I mean, what percent of our people are the political leaders? Not 10%, way less than that, right? Right? So Lincoln's like, if you just get 10%, they'll be the ones leading the way, paving the way to Reconstruction. So it's not as lenient as you might think. Okay. Who did President Johnson dismiss as Secretary of War? First of all, there's two choices on there right now. Is either one of those the correct choice?
I know not.
President Johnson did not dismiss Ulysses S. Grant as Secretary of War, and Samuel J. Tilden was not it. Anybody know it before I reveal it? Anybody know the name?
Stop.
Edwin Stanton. He was the Secretary of War. Now, what's the big deal about this? Please, Isaac. What's the big deal about dismissing the Secretary of War. Why did this become an issue in American history? And actually, it led to a constitutional conflict that got resolved. What was the issue? Yeah.
When the president dismissed his own cabinet
Yeah.
members that he picked out.
Should a president have the authority? He appointed this person Secretary of War, the Senate approved them, and now the president's like, you know what, this isn't working out. This person, we're not on the same page. How can I effectively run my administration when my Secretary of War doesn't even agree with me? I think that person has to go. And the radical Republicans were like, no, you can't do that. And Johnson's like, yeah, I can. They serve at my pleasure, right? So he did. And there was such a battle. What did Stanton do? Anybody remember? Yeah. Like he barricaded himself in his office and refused to leave. And then Johnson, remember at the beginning, I didn't go into this too much. I said I would, and I didn't end up not doing it. But remember at the beginning how we described Johnson? He was a Democrat senator from Tennessee. But what was the character assessment of him? Yeah, ill-tempered. That was in your notes. Then they can point to his bad temper. We really want someone with mean bad temper being president, and so scholar favor strongly, bigly with. Somebody's picking up on my mean peanut. Mean tweets. Anyway. Oh. You picking up what I'm laying down, Seth? Mean tweets, bigly. No, that's probably a good thing. Sometimes, you ever hear the phrase "ignorance is bliss"? That might be a good thing for today's culture. Although, actually, what effectively ended Reconstruction? Mackenzie. Okay, now I'm taking the test. Compromise. Yeah, that sounds like it. Could it be the compromise of 1850 that ended Reconstruction? Why or why not? Is that even possible? Why not, man? Yeah, when was the war, Bella? She's like, wait, I didn't raise my hand.
1863.
That's right in the middle of it. 1861 to 1865, right? So you can't have a compromise that was before the war and Reconstruction, which was after the war. Next one. By the way, here's the deal. Remember I said I put it on a tee? Well, even if you're doing tee work, you just don't go up and hit the ball off the tee one time, right? You look the ball up and you hit it off the tee again. So here it is. I'm putting it on the tee, and you go home, and instead of TikTok or whatever, you go through this a couple times. It's like you're going to succeed on Monday. Incredibly. Who was the leader of the Democrat machine known as Tammany Hall? Yeah, William Boss Tweed. Yeah, see, I try to be a little humorous sometimes. Chicago. Show me something here. What was famous of Al Capone's crimes, murders that happened in Chicago? He didn't actually pull, or named after a holiday. This is Tosh. They really don't remember anything. They do remember like things that outside of the curriculum. They don't remember what St. Valentine's Day Massacre. You don't remember? Oh, I didn't hear you. But back to this. What was going on? What city was this? New York. What was going on? A person that stands out in American history named Boss Tweed. Yes.
He was running a Democratic.
When we say political machine, what's that mean? Yeah. The whole apparatus of the Democratic Party was going through William Boss Tweed. If you wanted to hold office in New York, you better have his approval. You're going to go through him. And by the way, it wasn't just the people and the politics being run by him. What fuels that? What makes the world go round? Unfortunately, we wish it was love, but it's money, right? So all the money that was being funneled from where it was supposed to be going to the government was going filtered through the Tammany Hall. And you remember how much the debt of New York City, his doings in just 2 years, it rose almost fourfold. New York City going bankrupt while this guy is enjoying all the money. He ends up going to jail. Actually, the whole story is he goes to jail. Of course, he's got all this money, right? So he's able to get out of jail. And then they get him again. He ends up dying in jail. Like 3 years later. 1877. All right. Which amendment ensured protection under the law? We talked about 3 quote unquote civil rights amendment. Which one has to do with equal protection under the law? No. The 14th. The 14th Amendment under the law made sure that the southern states couldn't start making laws that, even though they couldn't be slaves, we'll make laws that make them second-class citizens. No, you can't do that. And the 14th Amendment's been used ever since then. It's used all the time. It's being used today. I told you, I think I said it to every class, to be praying this week about abortion, and the Supreme Court may be taking up the case in Texas. And part of the reasoning for the whole Roe v. Wade decisions, the Supreme Court tried to use the 14th Amendment and apply that to the woman's right to choose to kill a baby. So it gets used all the time. It's used by certain groups of people, the rainbow flag, right? So this amendment gets used all the time concerning equal protection under the law. And next. So it was intended to make sure black fairly. Which state was not occupied under the Military Reconstruction Act? Which one was not occupied? Somebody besides TJ. Yeah.
No, Tennessee.
No.
Well, which is it, Mackenzie? Tennessee. Why was Tennessee not under military occupation? Remember, this was the act that went beyond Lincoln's 10%. Congress has control, and they said, no, these states are going to have our military making sure that everything gets done. Was Tennessee exempt from that? You answered it.
Johnson was from Tennessee.
Okay, so what's that mean?
He was the vice president, and he was like already, since he was the vice president, he was like kind of with the like,
The process had already started in Tennessee. One of the big stipulations about being allowed to get control of your state again was ratification of the 14th Amendment. And Tennessee had already done that. Tennessee was already well on the road to Reconstruction before Reconstruction even started. So the military occupation of Tennessee was not deemed necessary. Next. 3/4 of blacks and 1/3 of the whites, actually. What type of farmers? Hopefully Caleb can eliminate plantation owners. Hopefully Caleb says, I don't think 3/4 of blacks went from slavery to owners of a plantation. Is that safe to assume?
Yeah.
Okay. So indentured servants or sharecroppers? What do you think, Caleb?
Come on.
I mean, 1/3 of the whites were this. I'm purposely trying to confuse them.
I know, I think you gotta choose, man. You're doing me dirty here.
3/4 of the blacks, but 1/3 of the whites were also.
Eric, stop looking at me. So what you think. I'm gonna say sharecroppers.
Yes, Caleb. Sharecroppers, right? Indentured servitude is a thing. And it would be, we learned about that, didn't we?
yeah.
I get confused with what class of which civics you read us in. Sharecroppers. And sharecroppers, by the way, is what it sounds like. You work the land, grow crops, and you share them. In other words, you pay that to your. All right, what did fellow Southerners call those who aided the carpetbaggers? Carpetbaggers, most Northerners that went down to to help rebuild, they just had this automatic assumption that they were down there just to profit off of it. Not everybody was, but they all got this nickname based on the idea that the Southerners thought that the Northerners were just trying to profit, so they called them carpetbaggers. And if you were seen as associating with those Northerners, they might call you a name. Yes.
Scalloway.
A scallywag.
I knew that.
A scallywag, a Southerner who was accused of aiding and abetting these Northern carpetbaggers. Yeah,
I'll go to the restroom.
yeah. What's a polywog?
That's what I want to know.
That's a Pokemon.
What is a polywog? What?
No.
Oh, this type of frog.
No.
Reptile. I only
Yeah.
saw this type of frog.
I think so.
Is
I was hoping to science, somebody in science.
Yo, what?
So it's kind of like a frog.
Yeah.
I thought it was a
It
Pokemon.
has something to do with frogs.
It's definitely a type of
I thought it
frog.
was a Pokemon.
All right. What was the agency set up to help blacks adjust in the South? I hope that Elise can eliminate one of these really quickly. That an agency set up to help blacks adjust was not eliminate that one. So what would it be? Civil Rights Administration? That sounds like something that would be to help blacks set up. And Freedmen's Bureau. What do you think? It's the Freedmen's Bureau, right? That was the organization that was down there in each state, making sure that former Confederates were, keep walking over here like the clicker's gonna do something. Very close to Florida. Is that the next one?
Quite possibly.
All right, which branch of government did Johnson believe was responsible for leading Reconstruction? All right, the war's over. We got the South. Our government is made of three branches: legislative, executive, and judicial, right? President Johnson believed that which branch should take the lead in getting Reconstruction done? Yes. Executive. Well, he happens to be the executive, right? Chief Executive President Johnson. By the way, what other president thought that the executive branch should be the one taking the lead? Lincoln, before he was assassinated. And the problem there was, who ends up taking the lead? The legislature. That was Shadow at the beginning. What did President Johnson do? Remember how this battle really became a hot issue? Because Johnson believed the executive branch should do it. We know that the executive branch didn't end up taking control. What did he do?
When Congress was out of session, he started his plan.
Right. So he had already implemented it. And that, again, he's got the ill. Showed how angry he got. He was trying to go around Congress by starting the process before they even started their session. So that led to his impeachment. What were the laws passed that were meant to keep former slaves from enjoying equal rights? Slave laws, that sounds appropriate. We're gonna make laws so the former slaves can't be equal to us. African immigrants, African Americans, but no. What are they, Jaden? Black codes. They would pass these laws meant to circumvent, okay, you want to pass the 13th Amendment, the 14th Amendment? We'll find loopholes and we'll pass laws in our communities and our states that we'll do everything we can, because we know what you're trying to do. You're trying to make the black man equal to the white man. And enough racists, of course, we talked about, you can defeat them in war, but you got to win their hearts, which is appropriate for us and our culture. Which amendment abolished slavery in the U.S.? Emily, the 13th. So slavery is no longer legal in the United States, or what about Puerto Rico? Puerto Rico's not part of the United States. Slavery allowed there? Nope, why not? Okay, it's a U.S. territory, or Guam. So is slavery totally outlawed? Serenity. Is there any case where slavery would be allowed? Yeah. If you're convicted of a crime and you can't pay the fine, well, you gotta go work it off. Wow, what a loophole they would use, right? If you're a former Confederate slave owner and your whole community still supports the Confederate idea, and that means your whole community, including judges and the sheriffs, and you can accuse, indict, and convict someone of a crime, knowing that they can't pay the fine, back on the plantation you go, working for no money. But we can justify it. It's not slavery. It's working off the fine, crime and punishment. I mean, after all, that's how Georgia became a colony. Remember that? No. Georgia became a colony by the English sending over their prisoners, their people in jail, to work off their sentence. A whole continent got developed that way. Which continent was it? Australia. Which election resulted in Rutherford B. Hayes becoming president after much debate and conflict and controversy? Worst maybe than we've experienced here recently. Dina, which election was that? That crazy election of did you just say all three of them? I think you said the first. Okay, here's a little lesson. How many people have ever not sure about an answer on a test, and so you erased it and changed it, and ended up your original was right? Anybody ever do that? That's like the law of it.
Nowadays, I don't do that anymore.
That's like the law
I
of
don't think I've
it.
ever done that in actual work.
It's like 90% of the time that's the way it goes.
I just gave up.
My dad told me never to do
So you
that
were right the first time.
because
Yeah,
that's
I know.
my mental state. And
All right, what happened?
then I would have no confidence in
Isaac, election of 1876.
Yes.
What if I was to make a proposition to you and tell you that the election of 1876 was actually more controversial than the election of 2020? Would you believe me?
I don't know, I wasn't.
Or do you have what we call recency bias and say that the election of 2020 has to be the most crazy controversial election ever because we're living during that time, right? And all of these allegations of fraud and conspiracy and they can never have been worse than that.
I think if the justice system actually did what they were supposed to in 2020, it might have been as controversial as that, but they didn't, so that is.
Okay. So in 1876, what happened? Why was there such controversy?
Because one did one, and then they turned over 3 states, and then the other did one.
Do you remember the states?
Louisiana, South Carolina, and maybe Tennessee.
Florida.
Okay.
Very good though. So 3 states, there was debate. The Democrats said that they won, the Republicans said that they won. And at first, the first returns that came in indicated that Samuel J. Tilden had won. So the newspapers, the presses were rolling. Samuel J. Tilden's going to be hold the phone. The Republicans are disputing this. We go to Supreme Court, not sure. The Constitution's not real clear what to do here. So they set up a committee of 15. 5 Democrats, 5 Republicans, fair enough. 5 Supreme Court justices. Justice is blind. So you got 15 people, odd number. Can't be a tie. 8-7 in favor of Hayes. Interestingly, all 5 Democrats, after looking at all the evidence, said that Tilden won. All 5 Republicans said that Hayes won. 3-2 said Hayes wins. And also, interestingly enough, Hayes had to win all 3, and Tilden only had to win 1 to be president. So, the moral of that story is, like I try to say every time I talk about the bad news and all the division in our country, it will get better. Should Jesus tell? What one word would many historians use to describe President Grant's administration? President Grant, war hero. Jake.
Corruption.
Corruption. Jake, if you were interested, and you were like, you know what? I'm really interested in the history of this president's got me really interested. I'm gonna go to the library this weekend. I'm gonna take out some books on President Grant.
Mhm.
Would you find that most historians would say he was a corrupt man? You just said that most historians would describe his administration
No.
with one word, corruption. Would most historians describe President Grant as a corrupt man?
No.
No.
It was like the people around him.
Yeah. So this great military commander, that obviously was great at military strategy and using and having people around him that he and win all those battles. Politics, not so much. What did suspicious Southerners call Republicans who gained influence in the South? Betterty. Those were the carpetbaggers. Named that because some writer saw some businessmen walking around with their little duffel bags or luggage bags literally made of carpet fabric, so they got the nickname carpetbaggers. And then cartoonists, they got their little carpet bag open, throwing all the cash in there. It was already here before he's too profit. Lincoln's second inaugural address included this line: with hatred toward none, with love for all. With forgiveness, none. With vengeance for all. Which one is it? It's almost the same as hatred and love. Forgiveness and vengeance, right? But wasn't that some people's idea it should have been? Some people's view, a radical Republican, if they were writing Lincoln's speech, they might have written with forgiveness toward none and vengeance for all. Which amendment ensured the blacks the right to vote? No. Jay, you can't stop someone from voting. You can't disfranchise them. You can't take away their suffrage based on their race, color, or beliefs, religion. What did they leave out? What did they have a great opportunity? What group of people did they have a to include with the 15th Amendment, and somehow they didn't? Imagine all the things that are going on, the racism and all that, and they passed the 15th Amendment to make amends for the racism. What did they leave out, Drew? Who did they leave out? You can't discriminate. You can't take you can't disallow someone to vote based on the race or the color. But in 1870, you can still discriminate based on what? Gender. Women still didn't get the right to vote. As much as so many people still thought that the blacks were lower class citizens, second class, they passed an amendment for them to have the right to vote, but not women. Something like that at least. Well, us. Not for 50 more years did they get the right to vote. About how many slaves lived in the U.S.? I'm sorry, in 1865. Which of those three numbers makes sense? How many slaves? Once the war was over, how many non-citizens suddenly became accepted as citizens? TJ. 4 million. 4 million slaves were emancipated. Civil War was ended. How did the Wade-Davis bill not become law? Wade-Davis bill was the proposition put up by Congress. How did it not become law? Somebody knew.
I knew.
Since Annie had eye contact with me until I was about to call someone, and she turned away. I'm going to pick on Annie for a second. Which one of those makes sense, Andy? Let's go through them. Let's think about them logically. One way that something wouldn't become a law is if not enough of the Congress votes for it, right? Another way would be if the president vetoes it. And another way would be, well, actually, this one doesn't, you have to eliminate this one because the Supreme Court wouldn't nullify it or overturn it until it became a law. So which of the other two? And I tried to give, it wasn't a very dramatic presentation, but I tried to give a little visual of what happened with that law. Go ahead, Andy. Which one's right? Lincoln vetoed it. More precisely, what kind of veto was it? What's the nickname for this type of veto, Dina? Oh, no, Andy's still on it. A pocket veto, right? What is a pocket veto? A president can veto a bill, they send it to him, it only becomes law if he signs it. And I'm only using he because it hasn't been she yet. If the president doesn't sign it, then he sends it back to Congress. That's a veto. What's a pocket veto?
He just basically just doesn't sign it.
And then
In his pocket.
it expires.
Yeah.
Why does it expire? Because that session of Congress ends. So according to the rules of legislation, when that session of Congress ends and a new session starts, they have to reintroduce that bill. Who were the former Confederates who terrorized blacks and sympathizers until thousands were arrested? The NRA? How about KNR? How about the KKK? Right? Listen, it was meant to be humorous because there are some people in our country that think they're terrorists, right? And KNR is just a sports station.
I thought it was an insurance thing.
Hurting the
Is
car.
there?
Hurting the car.
You're right, that's true. But I has the radio station.
Stop.
Listen, don't just count on that. Go on Classroom and do that. If it takes 3 times, do it. If it takes 7 times, do it. I'm gonna be, here's what I'm predicting. Here's what I'm hoping. You take the quiz on Monday, and it's so easy to grade because I just go like this. Yep, they're all right. Don't even have to mark anything. Do you know that teachers would love for all the students to get 100? How faster the grading would go?
Yeah, it's my niece. Oh, I do remember that.
Yeah.
She's on that.